Hello beautiful people, welcome back to the channel. Today we have arguably potentially the most anticipated vlog of the century. It is all going to be centered around how I train my glutes for growth. So I've been training for the past like 5 years, specifically weight training, with like my main #1 initial goal was to grow my legs and my glutes. It's safe to say that I was struggling in the lower body department. My dad used to draw me as a literal stick figure with the circle as my face because my head is so round. And I was so stick thin, and my sister Sophia used to call me granny butt because that's how flat my butt was. Nevertheless, I'm thankful for it though, because it helped to motivate me to get in the gym. So yeah, I'm basically just gonna be sharing with you guys everything that I do to train my glutes and how I've got to where I am now. So I hope you guys enjoy it. Okay, I need to show you guys what's been going on this morning. Hang on. I need a snack. So believe it or not, it's actually like afternoon. Hang on, I'm moving. Okay, I'm feeling a scene change. So basically, like I said, it's already noon, which is really late for me to start a vlog, but this morning I walked, which was like the snippets that you saw in the beginning of the video. I don't know about you guys, but I feel like it's like kind of gets boring when I'm like standing here, just like straight up lecturing you for a while. So I'm gonna really try my best to like give you guys my tips of how I train my glutes like throughout the vlog, so it's more entertaining. And if you've seen like my 2 latest vlogs, you know I've been showing you like snippets of my leg workouts, but there's like no explanation, like no reps or sets or anything like that. And that's because it is for this video. So throughout this video, I will show you guys 2 of my leg workouts, because I guess we'll just start with our first tip right now. I train my glutes 2 times a week. I always have. I've tried to go 3 days a week, and it just has been too much for me. And everyone always asks like, how frequently should I train my glutes? I really would say no more than 2 to 3 times a week, depending on your training frequency and like the type of exercises you're doing. But if you're focusing on like heavy compound movements as what I believe you should be focusing on in your lifts, you physically should not be able to do more than 2 to 3 sessions, because your body will like literally need that time to recover. What makes someone be able to train twice versus 3 times a week? Really a huge part of it goes back to your genetics, like just how quickly your muscle fibers like can recover does have to do with genetics, but also just again how heavy and how much you're pushing yourself in each session, how intense your sessions are, and how long your sessions are. So for example, if you're focusing on anywhere from like 5 to 6 exercises and you know you're training really intensely, you probably won't be able to have more than 2 efficient, effective sessions in a week. How to know if you're recovered enough? Signs for me if I'm not recovered enough is when I am not able to push as much weight as I'm used to, if I'm not progressing in weight sets or reps, if I'm not having good thorough contractions. I don't know if people understand when I say that, but like I can tell a difference when I'm having like a good thorough mind to muscle connection. I'm having a really good contraction. So if I'm not having that, that usually means that my body needs more time to recover. And also obviously if you're just like feeling tender and sore, probably it's a little bit too soon to hit the gym again. Usually a majority of the time have split my leg days up into a hamstring and glute focus day, and then also a quad and glute focus day. Right now that's what I'm doing, so that's why I'm showing you guys both of my workouts for the week so you can get a taste of what each one looks like. I have in the past, when I was like really in the heat of certain bulks, I would do like a push-pull leg split, and when I was doing that, it usually would just be like total legs, quads, hamstrings, glutes. I didn't really specify it, so it's completely up to you. I saw progress with both. Best bars of the century. Ooh, chocolate covered strawberry vibes, man. Gotta love it. What is this vibe right now? I don't even know what I look like. The glasses with the slicked hair, I don't know if it's a vibe, so we're gonna remove. I also just wanted to say 2 like details that are kind of irrelevant, but I feel like sharing one. I had popcorners after I turned off the camera, and I just feel like sharing it because that's the exact example of how like not everything is what it seems. Like you only see what you see on camera. So I had some popcorners in case you're curious, in case you care. And also the second thing, again, I know this last video is sponsored by Built Bar. This one I promise is not. I just genuinely love them. The other thing I wanted to say about them is that some protein bars like hurt my stomach, but Built Bar doesn't, so like that's also another reason why I love them. Okay, let's get driving. And then when we get to the gym, I'll tell you another fact. It's kind of fun. I feel like we're on a scavenger hunt. Also, Target acquired. Ahoy lattes, got it mate. This slicked hair with this these glasses and this jacket is like, I look like I'm about to be an undercover CSI agent from like the 990s movie, you know what I'm saying? Anyways, next thing that I like really wanted to touch on that I think is super important when it comes to training your glutes is just the concept of training your glutes in all three planes of motion. So the horizontal plane, the vertical plane, and then in the lateral plane. And that way you're able to target all areas of your glutes, and it just is the way to like train the most balanced way and then like build a balanced, rounded, voluptuous booty, you know what I'm saying? So that's something that I really take seriously. When you say something of like it's a vertical planes of motion, that would be exercises such as like a squat, a lunge, Bulgarian split squat, Romanian deadlift, a stiff-legged deadlift. And then in terms of horizontal, that's going to be more thrusting motion, so things like a cable glute pull through or hip thrusts, glute bridges. And then in terms of lateral, that's going to be more of like an abduction targeted type movement pattern, so that's things like any sort of abduction work or like a glute med kickback, lateral lunges. And also another huge thing that I want you guys to take away from this video is that when you are trying to grow any muscle, it is super uber important to focus on your compound moves first in the beginning of the lift, and then slowly move in and work into your accessory or isolation moves. Compound moves are where you get the most bang for your buck. That's what you get the most out of. So you really want to be pushing your strength and getting stronger with those movements. So therefore they should be the main focus of your lift, and therefore you should be doing them first while you're the least fatigued, etc. So compound movements are going to be things like your squats, your deadlifts, that sort of thing. Isolation moves are going to be more of like your leg curl, cable kickback, that sort of thing. So compound moves are targeting more than one muscle group at a time, and usually more than one joint is involved in the movement, such as like with the squat, your knees and your hips are involved. Whereas something with like a leg curl, which is an isolation move, that's going to be targeting only one muscle, such as your hamstring, and your knee is the only joint involved in the movement. And in terms of rep ranges, I usually tend to do like 3 to 4 sets of anywhere between 8 to 12 reps of my compound moves. And then for isolation moves, I tend to do like 2 to 3 sets of 12 to 20 reps, sometimes even 30 or higher if it's like a burnout situation. So I'm about to show you guys my glute and hamstring workout, as I'm about to be working out right now. Welcome to workout number 1. So I always start off every single leg day with some dynamic stretch. It's really important to start your workouts with stretches that you're taking your muscles through a movement as opposed to a static stretch. So here I do froggers and then froggers into some toe taps. I do some low lateral lunges to help stretch out the groin and the hips because my hips are always so tight. Then these, I love these. I've heard them called a few different things. The one that sticks with me most is 90-90 rotations. So first I just drop one knee down at a time. Then I go eventually into both knees down, and this has been amazing for helping with my hip mobility, so definitely give this a try if you have tight hips. And then another great hip opener are these C steps. So I learned these actually in high school, and basically all you're going to do is basically draw a C with your kneecap on the way out, and then you're also going to do the same thing by bringing your knees in. You could also picture it like you were stepping over, like hurdling over something. And the last little stretch I did was to try to help stretch out my hip flexor and my hamstrings. So again, still trying to make sure we're keeping in more of a movement. So I'm just doing a nice long lunge forward and then lunging backwards to help get a stretch in the hip flexor and then also in the hamstring. So another big tip of mine when it comes to booty growth is implementing glute activation. Now there's so much controversial information out there over if bands work or not. I 10,000% believe they have a place for adding resistance in a different plane and also helping with warming up your glutes. So that's what I mainly use them for, just to help get my glutes engaged before my lift, and it just helps them fire so much better in my lifts, I've realized. So I just do one set of each for these moves for about like 15 to 20 reps a piece, just until I get a nice little burn sensation and pump. So first I'm just doing like some 1 1/2 squats. Then I go into some kickbacks again on each side, some glute bridges. Then I go from there into some elevated abductions, again trying to add some stimulation in that lateral plane. And then I also finish off with some fire hydrants. So again, one set of each for about 15 to 20 reps just until I feel it. So moving into our main lift, I started off on the Smith machine. So here I'm showing you this little safety lock. And whenever I'm doing an RDL, I need to take it off so I have a greater range of motion. So I just want to show you how to do that. So first we just did normal Romanian deadlifts. Now this is an example of an exercise that happens in the vertical planes of motion like I was explaining previously. Here I did 4 sets of 10, and I actually had to work my way up a
little bit. I was experimenting with weights, and I eventually kind of arrived at a higher weight that felt more challenging for my working set. So with an RDL, you want to make sure that you're initiating the movement by pushing your hips backwards. This is a hip hinging movement. So I always like to think of it as if I'm trying to push a door closed with my bum. I'm keeping a nice, flat, neutral spine. There's no arching or curving in my back. My core is nice and tight to help prevent lower back pain. And like I said, I'm pushing my hips backward to help get a nice big stretch in my hamstrings. And by pushing my hips backwards, that's going to shift the weight onto your heels so that you can then pull up through your heels and have really good hamstring and glute engagement. With pushing your hips backwards, getting that nice big stretch is what's going to allow you to have a greater range of motion and therefore allow you to get more out of this movement. Your hands should just be hooks for the weights. When I like to pick up the weight, I like to try to roll my shoulder blades back and down to help with posture and again keep a nice flat neutral back. My toes are usually nice and light, and I always just really try to pretend that there's a board strapped to my upper body so it stays nice and still. Then very similarly, we went into a single-legged stiff leg deadlift for 3 sets of 10. Another example of a vertical plane of motion movement. These are super similar. With the Romanian deadlift, the range of motion stops more so at the middle of your shins, whereas this with the stiff leg deadlift, there's a greater range of motion and therefore a greater stretch in your muscles. So here I'm just using dumbbells. This little single leg stance just helps with any muscle imbalances that you may have. I kind of am doing like an elevated B stance behind me, so the majority of my work should be on that standing leg, driving up through that working leg's heel. Like I said, hands are hooks for the weights, back is nice and flat, my core is nice and tight to prevent any pain in my lower back, really focusing on pushing my hips backwards to create a stretch, and like I said, pushing up through my heels. Then I moved into 1 1/2 hip thrusts for 4 sets of 10. This would be an example of a movement that takes place in the horizontal plane of motion. Here, I usually really love doing these with like a free bar instead, but the spot that I normally go is taken up, but it's fine. I try to position my feet so that when I'm at full extension, my knees are about stacked over my ankle. It's hard to tell when I'm at this angle with the glute drive. And I also really focus on trying to scoop up with my hips to really focus on squeezing my glutes. I'm constantly looking forward to help create a posterior pelvic tilt and therefore just have better glute engagement. My toes are nice and light because I'm constantly driving up through my heel. And basically all you're gonna do is come down for 1 full rep and then go down for a half of a rep and come back up and really have a nice big squeeze at the top. And then lastly, I did some kneeling kickbacks on the cable machine. I've been loving these. Sometimes the bench is like right by the cable, so I just decided to use it. So I just pull it over, then I take my little ankle strappity. Then I wanted to show you guys that when I do this, I kind of angle the bench so it's in a diagonal so that when I kick back, I'm not hitting the bench. It may seem weird, but just try it. It feels a lot more comfortable. So I'm basically just doing a normal kickback, but in a kneeling position. So I did this for 3 sets of 15. Another example of more so a horizontal plane of motion. I'm keeping my back nice, flat, and neutral, core tight again, so I'm not creating any arching when I kick my foot back. I'm almost tucking my pelvis a bit, so there's just some more glute engagement. I'm driving back. I'm keeping a nice slight bend in my knee to shift the focus more towards my glutes and away from my hamstrings. I'm driving back and up as if like I'm kicking a can across the floor and really leading with my heel. I like to try to be nice, slow, and controlled to really have a nice thorough contraction. So that was it for this workout. I've honestly been liking having more concise workouts where I'm only doing 4 exercises, but I up some of the sets, so I'm doing 4 sets instead of 3 for some movements. I just find this is what's been fitting me, especially for my current diet. So yeah.
Whew. Okay, update. Workout was interesting. I did just like upper body work, core work. I wasn't feeling super like strong, so I did more like lightweight body weight stuff, but it was not too bad. My tripod has been broken for like 48 hours. We're gonna go into Best Buy, see what they have. The last one I got was from TJ Maxx, and like it did the trick, but like clearly it was cheap because it like broke in like a few months. So we're gonna see if I can find like a good quality one for not like crazy amount of money. And then honestly, y'all, I do need to stop at the grocery store, but I might go get lunch and treat myself out. You know what I'm saying? Woo! I genuinely feel like such a CSI agent today. I can't get over it. I like kind of like it, but I wish I just had a dope car to be getting out of, and then I would really be in character, such as this Porsche Cayenne. Shut up. Do these play music? Don't even get me started. I want this to play a sample song. Stop. Podcast, question mark? The concept of a home phone? You don't know it. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Okay, here's the thing. I found a tripod, superb, brilliant quality. The grand total was $160, and I was like, LiftFit does not have the funds for this right now. Maybe one day, but not now. So I found this sun pack one. I think this is still gonna work and it'll do the trick, but I was like, yikers, like we're not there yet, boys. LiftFit's still on the come up, you feel me?
Meet me by the beach. Early, maybe later, you could show me things.
Okay, so surprise, I'm making you picnic with me. Hang on, this is chaotic. I actually bought lunch on a whim because I felt like it, and I felt like picnicking. So this is a really pretty spot where you can like overlook pretty much my whole area where I live. It's so gorgeous. This has been my new sunset spot actually, but I was like, let's come here now and I can show it to you guys, and then we could chill, chat, eat, picnic. I love picnicking. So like, I'm living for this. Can't say I love this car, but I do love how huge it is. I don't know if this is gonna be so hard for you guys to watch, but like, I feel like it would be fun and different and funky and fresh. Woo! This is what I got in case you're curious. It's these Thai carrots. I don't even know how to explain what it tastes like, but it's like tangy, zesty, like almost gingery vibe. Really good. Some shredded chicken. And they call this Israeli slaw. It's like a lighter coleslaw type action situation. POV. Like MTV. I didn't think this angle was gonna be that bad, but give me a second. This just needs to not be here. Whoa. Yo! I can even see some scenery. I'm literally so weird. Who else would take you guys and be doing a talking segment in their vehicle on top of a mountain? Whatever. Welcome to Live Fit, people. Back to the important topic at hand. Next, and honestly, also borderline one of the biggest tips and biggest things that I keep in mind when it comes to training my glutes to get them to grow is 10,000,000,000% progressive overload. Progressive overload is imperative for any type of muscle building in general. If you want your muscles to grow, you need to be continuously increasing the difficulty of your workouts in order to keep causing stimulus on the muscle and forcing it to adapt via getting stronger and growing more muscle cells, aka becoming bigger. So progressive overload, if you're unfamiliar with the term, all it simply means is just increasing the difficulty of your workouts over time to, like I said, allowing your muscles to continuously need to adapt and get bigger and stronger, which is what we want. So progressive overload can be done in many different ways, but traditionally, like the main number one way is by increasing your weight. You can increase the amount of reps that you're doing with that specific weight, or you can increase the number of sets that you do with that same weight. You can also decrease your rest times. You can also increase your time under tension, or basically slowing down the movement. So essentially for me, when I was first getting into weight training in like the first 3 years, when I was really going through harsh like bulking phases and cutting phases, I would stick to similar movement patterns and similar exercises like I was saying before. So like a squat variation, a lunge variation, a hip thrust variation, a deadlift variation. And my main focus constantly was trying to lift as heavy as I can with as good as form as I could to therefore like get the most out of the exercise and make sure that other muscles aren't compensating. Because for example, for me, if I go too heavy on hip thrusts, yes, I can move the weight, I can lift it, but I don't have as good as glute engagement as I might if I drop the weight. Now going with that, I always get asked a lot, like, how do I know when to move up in weight and how much should I move up in weight? And my answer is your body is going to tell you that. It's completely different from person to person, and this is where I really enjoy taking an intuitive approach to progressing along my fitness journey, because some weeks you might really be able to jump up in weight because you feel like a lot stronger, and some weeks you're like just stuck plateaued at a certain weight, and it really has a lot to do with how much you're eating. Overall, like, you're gonna have to listen to your body. If you physically can, let's say your target goal is 12 reps, if you could do 12 reps pretty easily, you know, it's common sense, like you should up the weight, especially if we're talking about those heavy compound movements in the beginning of your lift. My advice always is to train until failure with your compounds, or at least like 1 to 2 reps shy of failure. So you're pushing yourself really freaking hard. If your rep range is too easy, like going back to number 1 basics of lifting, like you should be constantly pushing yourself and training hard. If you could do more than 12, then that's a big sign that you need to up the weight. By how much? Again, that's gonna be what you're capable of. You wouldn't be capable of adding on 20 pounds to each side of a hip thruster right away. So again, listen to your body. It might only be 5 pounds. If you do that set and you're like, damn, that still felt pretty easy, I could probably done 15 instead of 12, add on another 5, or then add on 10. You know what I mean? So it's like, this is where I want you guys to be able to know your body, know how to listen to your body, know how to read your body, so you can have these tools in your toolbox to keep progressing into fitness. And last talking point before I show you my next workouts for quads and glutes, I know this segment has been long, I do really want to bring attention to focusing on glute medius exercises. Now, a lot of people want to know how to like round out their glutes, or a lot of people struggle with just having like only working like your glute medius, which is like the big part of your glutes, but they struggle to give it shape. There's 3 muscles in your glutes. You have your glute medius, glute maximus, and glute minimus. So your medius and minimus are like kind of intertwined in your hips. Doing lateral work helps to target those areas, as well as targeting still your glute max, just like in the lateral plane, which still helps to like round it out. So like abduction work, if I do lateral lunges, lying clamshells with the band, I'll do just abductions and a glute bridge with the band. So that's what I use a lot of my band work for, is to target those side smaller muscles. And with that being said, I know I was saying to really train till failure, but I want you guys to keep in mind like that's mainly for your heavy compound movements. However, when you're going more towards isolation work, that type of stuff doesn't really yield you to be using super heavy weights. Like that's when you kind of have way more of a risk getting hurt, and they just are better suited for lighter weight, if that makes sense. So these types of moves, that's when I'm not necessarily training till failure, but that's when I'm doing lighter weight but higher reps. My RPE, or rate of perceived exertion, like the difficulty of it, of my isolation moves are a lot lower than my RPE of like my compound moves. So I usually tend to do a majority of my glute med work on my quad and glute days, which you are going to see right now.
Now for quads and glutes. So I'm not going to show you guys my warm up and my glute activation because it's the same as my first day that I showed you guys. So as you can tell by now, hip thrusts are a really big thing in my routine. It's definitely like my staple exercise, my go-to exercise for building up my glutes. So first, I obviously started off with some warm-up sets, and then once I got into my working weight, I did 3 sets of 10. So I kind of touched on this previously, but as for form, so all you're basically going to do is scrunch your legs up, and then you're kind of going to use your elbows and also pushing up through your heels to shimmy up onto the bench. You're like mid back to bottom of your sports bra should be what is on the bench. I like to position my feet so that my knees are stacked over my ankles, and there's a 90-degree angle when I'm at the top of the movement in full extension. I'm constantly looking forward to help create a posterior pelvic tilt, like I said, to help engage the glutes. I'm constantly pushing up through my heels, and I focus on scooping my hips up just for better glute engagement. So I did 3 sets of 10 with this weight, and then I dropped the weight and did 2 more sets for 12 reps. Then I moved into another glute building staple, Bulgarian split squats. These are amazing for your legs, especially your quads and your glutes. So I did these for 3 sets of 12. A little hack is to come to your knee first, put your back leg on the bench, and then come up that way so you're not kind of struggling to find the bench behind you. Here your range of motion is kind of almost going to be in a diagonal line. I always think about sinking back down into it. So you're going to drop back and downward so that your knee is staying stacked over your ankle. This is going to help create a nice big stretch in your glutes. Same thing by keeping a nice torso forward lean. That's also will help to create a bigger stretch in your glutes and make this more glute focused. Your hands should be hooks for the weight, and really focus on driving up through that front leg's heel. Next, I went into a sumo dumbbell squat for 3 sets of 15. I really have been loving these. So when I say sumo, that's going to come down to your foot placement. So you want your feet to be just past shoulder width apart, toes pointed outward, and same thing, you're going to drop your hips back and down, keeping that dumbbell in between your legs, shifting your weight onto your heels, and then really pushing up through your heels and squeezing your glutes. I like to do this by keeping more so constant tension, by not really fully locking out at the top, but keeping that constant tension throughout the full movement. So the hip thrusts were more of like a horizontal plane of motion type movement. The Bulgarians and sumo squat were vertical, and now we're moving into more lateral work like I was explaining. So this is a side leg press. I did 3 sets of 15. This is horizontal as well, but also lateral. This is really important to play around with your foot placement to make sure that you feel it correctly. I like to keep my foot nice and high and at a 45-degree angle. Same concept here. I'm constantly pushing through my heel, and then keeping my foot high helps to keep that stack of my knee over my ankle just to feel it more in my glutes. You really should be getting a nice big stretch in your glutes here. So this is great. I do this to help to round out my glutes, and I really like adding this in. Lastly, for a little burnout type situation, I did banded glute bridges into an abduction. So I did 2 sets of 15 glute bridges into 15 abductions. I would repeat that 2 full times through, and that would be 1 set. So again, I would do 15 bridges right into 15 abductions, right into 15 bridges, right into 15 abductions. That was 1 set, and then I did that 1 final time to complete this workout. So when it comes to a glute bridge, all the same similar concepts. My knees are still pretty much stacked over my ankles. Anything further or closer out, you're gonna struggle to really feel it in your glutes. I focus on scooping my hips upward and try to minimize an arch in my lower back. And the same thing when I get to that abduction. I try to keep my tailbone nice and scooped under so I don't have any stress on my lower back. My glutes are still engaged, and I really focus on driving my knees outwards while keeping my hips up to the sky.
Before I finish out this vlog, I did want to touch on 2 more quick things: recovery time and burnouts. I always recommend like 48 to 72 hours in between like each leg session so you can completely recover. And then also in terms of burnouts, I get questions about this too. I don't like live by burnouts. No, they're not necessary, and no, I don't do them every time. I don't really think they're super effective, but I like adding them in just to like get a good burn, muster up some metabolic stress in the muscle to help with growth. But I feel like they're overhyped. I don't think they're as effective as a lot of people hope for them to be. They are fun. They're a good way to like make sure that you're tired out the muscle. So I do them sometimes just because I enjoy them. And again, it's giving some extra stimulus and volume, but it's not like end all be all. So yeah, that's it for today's vlog. I hope you guys enjoyed it. I hope you guys learned something, and thank you of course so much for watching. I'm sending you so much love, and hopefully I'll see you in the next one. Peace out.